Magandang hapon. Good afternoon, and welcome to the Senate. Thank you for coming, even with a short notice. We'd like to thank all of the resource speakers for attending today. I won't acknowledge you one by one anymore. In any case, in the past hearings, we've all been with each other already. So let me just give a blanket thank you to everyone. We called the hearing because we've been getting reports that even though the physical port congestion has actually eased up in the last few weeks or even months, it seems that some of the charges related to the port congestion seem to still be there. No? And we would like to clarify that, as well as what government can do to also step in to be able to ensure that prices go back down. At the same time, what the private sector can also do, no, to help support our efforts to keep our prices down. So we'll be going through the resource speakers, but we've asked our port operators to begin the discussion. So did you have a toss coin already, Christian and Sean? Kung sinong mauuna? Maybe Christian can go ahead, or Sean will go ahead. Yeah, Sean, you can go ahead with your presentation. Then we'll have Christian from ICTSI to share some updates regarding the port congestion. I'd just also like to put on record that the port congestion issue started, was it February of 2014? So we've actually gone over a year already. So this is one of my longest running hearings already. I'm hoping this will be our last hearing, to be very frank, no? And hopefully we can move on from here. But if there still are issues, no, we'd like to tackle them today. And also look at the next following steps to be able to get to a sense of normalcy again. So, Sean, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. They're just putting up the presentation on the screen.
So in the meantime, I'd like to acknowledge our two secretaries who are here, Secretary Domingo and Secretary Almendras. Thank you for gracing this occasion with your presence. Maraming salamat. I think we're experiencing some congestion in the back room, no? I thought we were free of the congestion already. It seems it transferred to the technical booth. Okay na. Pero okay. Okay na as in the next minute and a half, or okay na in the next 15 minutes? In the next minute. Make sure na yung kay ICTSI is ready na rin next time.
Good afternoon once again. I'll be taking you through the current situation at South Harbor from the latest updates. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Next slide. Still congested, Mr. Chairman. I think this is your ploy, Chris. Yeah. If I may start now, what we do is we have three key indicators that we look at. The first one would be if vessels are being accommodated on time. And we look at the yard utilization and our laden both for laden and empty. If you'll see that for the past 2 months, 3 months now, except for the period of the Pope's visit, we have not had vessels waiting. And our yard utilization has gone from last year's high of capacity to now 62% for laden, and empties we have 66. One more, next slide. The gate deliveries, if you'll notice, are already now ranging from 1,700 to 2,000. This is a much better figure than what we had second half of last year. It's something at least 70% improvement. Next slide, please. I just have a simple graph here which shows you the relationship between the deliveries, the dwell time, and the yard utilization. If you'll notice the red line, it has improved, as I said, from what it was last year to now the levels of the 1,700 to 2,000. And that has given us a very good impact for both the dwell times and the yard utilization. If you look at the blue line, the dwell time has significantly dropped. And this was also partly because the consignees have already been diligent in removing their containers on time. Yard utilization has gone down to very manageable levels now, as I mentioned in the first slide. And to sum up, what I'm trying to say here is that the improvement was basically from the improved deliveries, which we have said all along that the ports in Manila have sufficient capacity. It's just a need to bring those cargoes out on time without using the port as a storage facility. Next slide, please. Now, moving forward, we're not just going to be leaving it at that. We have a lot of programs with regards to equipment, the yard, and other IT improvements that we have online. Now, for the equipment side, we had 6 new side loaders that just came in the first quarter. That's now increased our fleet to 50%. We have 5 rubber-tied gantries that will be here by mid of this year. That would increase our 19 to now 23. And along with that, we have tractor. Next slide, please. 18 additional trucks, internal trucks for delivery to complement this other equipment. Next. Now, on the capital expenditure side for the footprint, we have the ongoing expansion for 4 areas, which I'll show you in a couple of in the next slide, which will be upstream third, fourth quarter of this year, and that's in addition to what we've had in 2014. And an important factor that we will have to enhance is the multiple gate access. If you recall in last year's discussion, we had to open up other gates to be able to decompress the flow going into the terminal. We now have the 4, and we'll now be automating the other 2. The most, well, I would say the most relevant one that we're looking at for this year is the container booking system. We have mentioned this many times. We've talked about it. We've already gone through a lot of discussions with our provider, and we intend to have the container booking system by fourth quarter of this year. This is meant, as I explained in previous hearings, it will make the flow of trucks going to the terminal much better. There will be no need to queue. All those that have transactions will be the ones going to the terminal and will not have to wait. This next slide is just to support what I said earlier. If you look at the lower portion, as of January this year, we have already had 25% increase in our capacity. Those are the gray colored areas. Now what we have for this year are 4 projects that will be coming in, and that would give us another 14% increase with those that are colored in red, pink. So what we want to do is really prepare ourselves further for any eventualities that would come in. All of this having said, are initiatives that we're doing as a terminal operator. We can only do so much. Expand the footprint, get equipment, improve the efficiency. But what I'd like to just highlight this afternoon is my last slide in terms of how we would be able to sustain this. And it's not just the terminal operators themselves, but it's a partnership between the port operators and all the stakeholders. Next slide, please. Now, we need to prevent a repeat of last year. We all do not want this to happen. It's not good, and we all have seen the negatives of this. What we need to do as partnership between stakeholders and ourselves is we need to continue the withdrawals within the free storage period, because ideally the free storage period is more than sufficient for the cargo to be processed, released from the gates, and brought to the consignee premises. Next. We also are encouraging to maximize the use of weekend deliveries. In fact, we provide free overtime deliveries on this time. Up to this time, we still continue providing that. And it would add 2 days to the week. If you imagine what we're doing right now. If we added 2 days a week, then it would really help in terms of any buffering that we would need. Next. We have the e-payment system. This also helps in terms of the processing of clients within the terminal. The e-payment system has been there already as early as second, third quarter of last year, but not much have been able to support this, and we encourage our stakeholders to use this mechanism forum to improve further. We have the traffic light system. I think if you remember, we had this system that would indicate empty returns to the port. It's still there. It's been effective, and we will continue to use that. We have also added the same structure in our new gates. The other gates will also be fitted with this on the total 4. Now the last one is really related to the container booking system. It's fine that we will implement something, but if the support is not there, not just from the stakeholders, the importers, exporters, but from government sector as well, to help us all be able to establish something that would help us in any eventuality moving forward. That's all, Mr. Chairman.
All right. Thank you, Sean. Christian? Yeah, we'll have the ICTSI presentation. So in the meantime, Sean, categorically for ATI, we are back to pre-congestion operations.
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Or would you say even more efficient operations since the pre-congestion?
Well, I would say in terms of yard utilization, it's within the pre-congestion period. But one thing to note from us is the truck deliveries. If you will see that we've been hitting 2,000 TUs, even prior to the truck ban, we've had probably only around 1,600.
So you're actually more efficient now?
Yes. And it's probably also because the roads going to the ports are much more accessible. The flow coming in is much better.
And why is that?
Well, maybe because of what, not only maybe, but because of the efforts of the cabinet cluster to be able to put on this 24-hour lanes, the additional routes, and all the other initiatives that had been in place, headed by Cabinet Secretary Almendras.
And all of that we were able to do without really building any new roads, right? This was really just improving the flow of traffic and being clear with regulations.
Yes. But if I may just clarify, it doesn't mean to say that we must not do anything with the roads, because as we go further...
Aren't we already building, if I'm not mistaken, we're already building something. Secretary, wasn't there a plan to build like a access way? Is that still part of the plan?
Your Honor, yes, there is the connector roads, elevated skyway that will connect, and there will be one exit that will go into the port area. Your Honor, may I ask Mr. Bert Swansing to explain the details, because he's particularly the private sector person involved in that initiative, since DPWH is not here. Is equally familiar with the initiatives to do that and the schedules, Your Honor.
Mr. Swansing, while they're looking for the ICTSI presentation, maybe you could give us an update regarding the connector roads.
Okay, good afternoon, Mr. Senator. In regards to the connector roads, as you might have probably noted, in the case of the Manila North Tollway Corporation, MNTC, the operator of NLEX, they're now at Valenzuela. Segment 9 is now open. Segment 10 is under construction, and segment 10.1, they're doing a pre-inspection of where the alignment is going to be. Segment 10.1, they're supposed to build a ramp from PNR line down to Road 10, so that trucks coming in and going, coming out and going in of the harbors will have easy access. So that's as far as MNTC is concerned. If there are no hitches or TROs, since some of the tricky right-of-way matters were already solved, that will be operational next year.
So that's 2016.
2016.
Meron hong month na indicated for the operations?
Late next year.
Late next year.
Late next year.
Okay. So
There
we're
is
hoping that operations will continue as such, no, na medyo mas efficient na ho ngayon
Yes,
until next year when the connector road should even make us even more efficient.
Yes, that will make travel of trucks from North Harbor to and from North Harbor to north of Manila, meaning going to Pampanga and upward, without passing through the normal routes now.
In Manila.
C3, A. Bonifacio Street, and then enter NLEX.
That connects to the North Harbor, but it will also connect to the
South Harbor,
no?
Through Road 10.
Road 10
and A. Bonifacio Drive.
Okay. Thank you.
The other one, of course, there are two. The other one is that of Ramon Ang Highway, the Skyway, which is the one operated by Skyway, Somco. They're now under construction. If you notice, they're also now at President Quirino Avenue, and they're also doing some clearing operation at along Araneta Avenue in Quezon City. Of course, there are two matters that they're attending to now. The first one is regarding that flyover along Buendia, whether the Skyway will run along side by side the flyover at Buendia or go over the flyover. This morning, again, we had a meeting, and the problem that we need to solve there is the fuel line that is running along Osmeña, that goes along the side of the flyover. The one that has leakage, yeah. We're trying to solve that because what they're going to do is put up the columns there. So once that's solved, then the decision is the Skyway will jump over the present overpass. And then the other one, at the end of this Stage 3 Skyway, is at A. Bonifacio Street in Balintawak, whether to go down before the interchange or again jump over the interchange, MRT, and the high tension wires, or go under.
To jump over the MRT?
Yes, because you have the interchange, then you have MRT, LRT, and then you have the high tension wires. So you have to jump over that.
That's pretty high.
That's pretty high. That's higher than Magallanes. The next decision is to go under, meaning build an underpass. And the third option is to require MNTC to move the flyover going to President Quirino, that when you turn right at the entrance of the NLEX, you have a flyover that goes to President Quirino Highway. Move it to the right.
Okay. And ano ho yung target date for the southward?
The target date for the first phase of Stage 3 is late this year.
But that won't connect pa rin to the
Hindi pa rin,
ports, no? Anong stage ho yung aabot ka sa port?
The whole stretch is called Stage 3.
Okay. So, the completion is also next year?
Next year.
Okay. So, more or less, we are expecting that by late next year, we would have special or, how do you call it, easy access roads, no? Both to the NLEX and to the SLEX.
Of course, what the tracker is hoping for is that immediately, right now, there is this access road, C3. There is a small portion there. It's about less than 500 meters long. It's a gauntlet. No? You turn right at C3 from Road 10. Then after the railroad track, nagsisikip. No? Then it opens up before Rizal Avenue Extension. Secretary Singson is really burning the oil, no, so to speak, to have that open. Para sa ganon, the trucks coming from the north going to the port will not have to pass through the small streets along Caloocan before going to C3.
Oh, so that's another quick solution. Well,
That's another
not
quick
so quick,
solution.
but quick enough solution.
Yes, that project actually was started by the mother of the president.
So 1980s pa po yun.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Mr. Swansing. No, let's go to Christian. Your presentation's here.
Thank you. Your Honor, just to update you on the last thing that Sean mentioned, the booking system. As a matter of fact, we're signing the contract on May 15th. So the estimates that we have are actually too conservative at this stage. Previous slide, please. I think you can go up to view and put it in full screen mode. Okay, we can scroll. So, apologies for that. Okay, next slide, please. So, look, we all know that this was 2014's hot topic, as the senator said, and as the secretary has said. Hopefully, it's the last time we talk about these six crazy issues that came out from the implementation of the truck ban. Next slide. Other than the truck ban, to a great degree, there were business behavior challenges to begin with that really emphasized the ill effects of the ban. One was really the low storage regime, which encouraged warehousing. I'll talk about that a little bit more later. Another was really the flexibility that the terminals were giving some of our customers. And this is not the fault of the customers, but rather the fault of the terminals competing on trying to get as many empties as possible to augment our volumes. And also allowing commercial practices that supported the random arrival of vessels and trucks, which will, of course, be corrected by the vehicle booking system on the truck side, which effectively is going to balance out the flow of trucks across 24 hours, 7 days a week. And by giving incentives to the lines to avoid vessels coming off their schedules, or disincentives in many other cases. Next slide. Thank you. Procedural improvements that we've seen since we started meeting with the cabinet cluster and presenting to the Senate, Your Honor, have included penalties on overstaying boxes, which have had a significant effect. I'll show some evidence of that later. Better management of empties in and around the port, including the additional use of IT, depots and shipping lines now ensuring that there's sufficient capacity outside to support the supply chain, and the maximization of trucks by making their parking areas in the port more efficient. And by forcing exporters and lines, at least on the side of ICTSI, to pre-book the arrivals of these containers. Now, we will also, as I said, disincentivize people from coming off schedule by having a firm stance on people meeting their appointments. And we've likewise worked with customs. I see some of the gentlemen that we've worked with here on export declarations, on special permits to load, and soon by adding additional capacity for the PID division of the BOC at MICT to speed up the movement of trucks once they're cleared from the terminal. Next slide. Actually, the most important slide I have, unfortunately, I don't think it's that clear. All you need to do is look at these 4 different colors. These represent 6-month periods over the last 4 years from October to March. Now, you'll notice the period of October 2011 to 2012, you see your volume level was more or less at 145,000 TEU at the MICT. Okay? During the peak season, the maximum utilization was 73%. By the end of March, the utilization was 59%. The following year, the following subsequent 6-month period between October to March, which you see in green, had a 9% increase on the previous period. But if you see the utilization, despite the increase in volume, utilization at the end of 2012, despite also the increase in volume, was slightly higher only to 75, and utilization in March was actually lower at 58. That's because despite the increase in volume, we added capacity at berth 6. But the increase in capacity was significantly outweighed by the increase in dwell time of containers. So while you increase your capacity by 20% and only grew the market by 9, your utilization stayed the same, which means people left their containers longer. Now run into 2013 to 2014, again the period of October to March, you see that there was no growth. Utilization in the peak season of 2013 was 79%, which was slightly impacted by the Yolanda relief operations. But what's very important here is you see relatively low volume, especially in February 2014, the low blue line, but a utilization rate at the end of March of 97%. And that was driven by the fact that trucks could not come in and out of the port to collect the containers. This was no longer a behavioral issue on the part of customers leaving the containers, but rather the inability to pull out the boxes. Fast forward to the last 6 months, and you'll see extremely high volume during the peak season, October to December. Utilization rate of 98%. This was the hangover from the truck ban. But despite extremely high volumes in February and March of 2015, February actually was the record in terms of daily average. You see the utilization has come down to 57%, despite 10% growth, 6-month period versus 6-month period. So you've effectively gone from 97% in March 2014 with very low volumes and heavy restrictions to now very high volumes, higher than any peak season previously, and the utilization lower than at any point in the last 4 years.
And without new infrastructure, no?
Without new infrastructure.
Okay, so this is because of efficiency.
Well, I'll explain. The primary cause, next slide, is this. If I may stand up, Senator, to explain.
Anybody with a pointer that we can borrow? Wala? Okay, ikaw na lang. Sige. Okay, so while we give you some time to get back to your seat. So Christian, in short, you're saying that because of the new procedures and the penalties, we've actually gotten the private sector to be more efficient in terms of the time that they spend in the ports.
Yes, sir. However, there is one aspect of the truck ban disappearing that has made us less efficient again, and that's the use of Saturday afternoons on to Monday mornings.
But with your booking,
Correct.
with the booking system,
Correct.
and you're given a ticket on a Saturday or Sunday, that's the only time you can go. So you
Correct.
will also correct that with the booking system.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So this is actually this shows that we can actually get our acts together, no? With the right policy, meaning the right penalties and the right support of the different stakeholders, we were actually able to get people to be more efficient.
Well, this, Your Honor, represents very high-level customers, very disciplined customers. All multinationals, as a matter of fact. Now, you have others. For example, I coordinate with LC a lot. We know this issue with the storage penalties. They got hit hard in the beginning, but now they know how the process works, and some of her constituents get them out very rapidly.
This top 10 represents what percentage of the port? Would this be 50% of the port?
No,
not even.
No, not
much lower.
Much lower. Much
Okay.
lower. But this is the general trend.
Okay.
However, there are people who've gotten very smart. Before, they would import one bill of lading of 100 containers. Now they bring it in 10 bill of lading, so they don't have to clear them.
And to manage the penalties.
So that they don't have the penalties. They clear
Yeah.
one BL at a time.
Yeah. Well, I guess that's it. No, with the new rules, the stakeholders will just really adjust. No, but
Yeah.
the point is, if everyone gets to this point, then we're ensuring that the congestion won't happen again.
Well, of course, there still needs. If we factor in, this is free capacity, but if we factor in growth going forward, and I'll talk about it later, we need to focus on two other things. Something on our side, but also something on the government side. Next slide, please. Just to put it in table form, utilization's gone down by 41 points, end of quarter one versus end of quarter one 2014. The import dwell time has gone from 9 to 7. The standard deviation of that 7 is very high. You have many taking it out in 1 to 2 days, but also others still leaving up to 27 days. But it still is a big improvement. Exports, generally, they will stay at that because they want to get in there to make sure that they have enough time to get on the ships. But one of the great things here, as Sean had mentioned earlier, is you're actually getting more containers, imports delivered every day. So the impact of this rise in utilization on Sundays and Mondays because of a lack of activity is being mitigated during the week because people are able to pull out rather quickly. And actually, that's because, next slide, we've cleared that truck holding area that many of you have seen before where the empty containers were taking up all the roads for bookings and all of this stuff. If you look at this place now, and I think the trucking associations will verify, next slide, this is what it looks like, right, for the most part. And you can see that we provided sufficient truck parking for the trucks so that once they determine what containers they're pulling out, they're already in the port, already parked effectively, and the roads leading up to the gates are cleared. And again, I leave it up to the truckers to verify. I think CITA President Olego has seen the benefits of this. Next slide. As I said, those were quick wins and some of the silver linings from having to deal with all the problems with the truck ban. We do have some initiatives this year. There's going to be serious civil infrastructure expansion approved by PPA through DOTC. We're bringing in additional equipment. This is all part of our existing contract. There was debate previously on whether we should be allowed to do this or not because of the eternal Batangas, Subic versus Manila argument. I think we've all started to understand this better now. We are putting in our intermodal plans, specifically barging to Cavite and rail to Cabuyao. The rail project, we have been in consultation with DOTC, and when they bid out the elevated passenger trains to Calamba and the extension of LRT2 from Recto to North Harbor. There will be provisions below to ensure that a freight network can work efficiently from the port. And we're also implementing a number of new systems, including the vehicle booking system. Next slide. One thing we've gotten off the ground is the inland depot in Laguna, which we call Laguna Gateway. This was our former rail facility, which never really picked up. I think when we implemented this project in 1996, it was about 15 years too early, and we're taking it out of the closet and really going full force with that now. Next slide. This is the reclamation, the Berth 7 reclamation at MICT. That's not a rendering, that's an actual photo. By November of last year, next slide, we had completed half for empty stacking, and you can see some backhoes and others working in that area now. That area will be completed, plus another 4-hectare area behind Berth 6 will be completed in November of this year. That's conservative. We're really looking at August, September, but as far our contractor is committed latest November. And again, this is part of our current contractual commitment. Next slide. That is what it looks like today. This is a 3D rendering. Next slide. This is what it will look like once complete, plus a yard expansion that we want to do in 2016, which is what you see in the dead center of the screen there. That is not the contractual obligation, but we will be filing with PPA now to put that in. On the top right of your screen, you also see additional stacking where the original truck holding area was, a new truck holding area where we are negotiating with informal settlers to vacate. Easier said than done, but we'll find a way. We will also put a proposal in to build Berth 8, which is that, and the yard. And next slide. Next slide, please. Berth 9. And actually, in reality, you could go on for quite a way. However, this cannot be done if, next slide, please, you continue to have a limitation of your road access. I think if there's one thing we all agree on, sure, it's nice to be able to go through R10, which is the green line there, to go on a on-ramp for a highway. But if the informal settlers and the talyeres and the sari-sari stores are not totally cleared from R10, we can forget about all the investments in the port. We can forget about all the highway investments. You're still going to have a bottleneck. If nothing is done underneath the Del Pan overpass, where you have precintos, barbecue huts, tricycle, how do you call it, terminals. If nothing is done on the access road, if parking on Bonifacio Drive is not controlled, we can build whatever highways we want and we can build whatever port infrastructure we want. It's going to be all for naught.
Sorry, maybe you can help clarify. No? The two connector roads that Mr. Swansing mentioned, where will they be here?
The top dot on the green line.
Okay. So from there, that's the one connecting to the north.
Yes.
Okay, and the one connecting to the south.
You will still have to go through the city of Manila.
I see. Where does the San ho yung dulo? What's the end of the
San Marcelino, Quirino, sir.
Which would be
wala dyan.
Over up there. So it's not a direct. It's
no.
not a direct connector road, no.
No. Which is something that really needs to be studied.
Okay. Yes, go ahead, Capsec.
Or you can, if you want to go south, you go north first to go onto the Skyway, then you can go south. You take R10, you go up the ramp into the Skyway, then you can turn, instead of turning going north, you turn right going south.
So you can go south using the...
But that is not the ideal situation, Your Honor. Yeah. Ideally, we should find a way to connect going south, which is still being studied.
Okay. And just to be clear, this is a PPP? Or this is a government-funded project?
both are PPPs. They've been NEDA approved and tendered and awarded and ongoing construction already.
Okay. There's ongoing construction, CABSEC, so it's done now. I mean, the signed, sealed, and delivered na yung plano.
Unless there's a TRO.
Okay.
I'm sorry, my Senator Swansing and myself are so afraid of
TRO. Okay, I understand. But to address the concern raised, we don't have a plan for a direct connection to the ports. Wasn't that considered in bidding out this PPP?
We recommended to the OTC to study a rail direct connect to the port, which was there in the past. So you need to.
If you go back a few slides, sorry, Secretary, if you go back a few slides, this one first. Sorry. This. No.
Let's go back to that one with the red, yellow, and green roads. Slide 19, I think. Yeah, this one.
This orange line, this one, that used to be a spur through the squatters. Okay. So after we shelved the rail project, we converted it into a road. So the ability to connect is there.
So the ability to connect is still there. The current projects are until R10 and San Marcelino.
For roads, Your Honor, but the new rail system, which will come from Malolos all the way to Matnog, that's 147 billion peso rail system, includes this spur line into the equation.
Okay.
Because we actually believe that it's actually a lot better to move containers via rail, like many other countries. And the intermodal nature of this allows you greater flexibility in the future, Your Honor.
Okay. No, granted, Secretary, no, but even if we have that railway system, I think the trucks will still probably be utilized, no, for a number of years. Wala ho bang ano? We cannot. There's no wisdom in connecting it further down the road to the ports.
There is an initiative that we have requested EPWH to find an alignment to put an elevated spurway into the port.
I see.
That is challenging. We are actually looking at waterways, which is controversial, using some creeks, because it's very hard, Your Honor, to get right away in the city of Manila.
I see. Because this is already congested. I mean, may tao na ho dyan, may nakatira na dyan.
But we're not giving up on it. We're just continuing to study it. The other challenge, Your Honor, if I may be allowed, is only a certain percentage of cargo actually goes towards the south and to the north. There's still a huge volume of cargo that actually is intended for Metro Manila. A majority of which, Your Honor, actually is for the city of Manila. That is why when someone proposed that the ports should be kicked out of the city of Manila, I explained to the leadership of the city of Manila that that's not a very good idea, because that's how the city was born. So the truck dispatch system and a more disciplined truck drivers cooperation, which, by the way, we've proven works. We are so happy that until now people still do the single file. I mean, it's become a way of life. And so my personal dream, Your Honor, and this is not an official stand, and definitely I know there are many people in government, particularly MMDA, who will not agree with me, is that there will be no need for a truck ban in the future if the truck dispatch system works well, because it will naturally limit the flow of trucks in an efficient manner, which is what we proved when we recommended 24-hour single lane. That was a big challenge when we were convincing the mayors to allow it, but we sort of had a bet with the mayors that if we can prove to you that we will not we will stick to one lane and we will not disrupt traffic, if you allow us to, then you allow us to move 24 hours, which is why we still have until today a 24-hour lane, because we have proven the fact that we will not create traffic in the LGUs that are concerned.
And I agree completely. You know, once the booking system is operational, you're actually spreading out across 24 hours and 7 days a week. What previously was done 5 days a week within 6 hours of the day, no, or even shorter. So that should work, no. I think Attorney De La Cruz is here from DOTC, no, Attorney. Yeah, maybe just as a suggestion from the committee that you could also look into the building of the roadways, no? That would be under DOTC, right? Or is that under... That's under DPWH. Okay, well, we'll ask the CABSEC to just look into it with DPWH. Christian, if you can wrap up your presentation.
Yes, sir. Just to conclude, it's exactly in line with what you were just saying and what the Secretary was saying. It's imperative that we seriously look at this road network. This is extremely detrimental to available capacity, as it is as maximizing available capacity and inciting additional capacity to be developed, which is very, very easy in that area.
Sorry, if I may, CABSEC, who in the executive looks into that? Is it NEDA? Is it DOTC? Is it DPWH? Which agency is directly responsible for studying the road networks, the congestion issues, etc., etc.?
For Metro Manila, Your Honor, it's MMDA.
Really? MMDA is the one who's supposed to...
MMDA has the jurisdiction over traffic flow, in particular because it synchronizes the local governments that we pass through. But it is a cooperation between DPWH and MMDA that makes these things work. So, you know, decisions where to put overpasses eventually gets elevated to the NEDA board after it is cleared at the ICC based on inputs from DPWH and with the concurrence of MMDA.
Okay. So for the record, no, DPWH, MMDA, eventually NEDA. So DOTC they don't play a role here, or even DTI in terms of the road networks or anything like that?
They're all part of the ICC, Your Honor. There is participation at the technical working group where all the other agencies can give their inputs into.
Thank you. So yes.
The second one is in relation to what the Secretary was saying. We should not have any truck bans. The trucking organizations have proven that with their own discipline and the help of technology that this is actually beneficial to the flow of traffic, all kinds of traffic. The third is assistance from customs to bond the inland depots, because even if you connect inland by truck or by rail, if they are not bonded, you have to wait for the clearance in the port anyway, so it defeats the purpose. And the fourth is to encourage more efficiency on the water side by encouraging shipping lines to get into more vessel sharing agreements to bring in the bigger ships, which we're very prepared for with the cranes and the depth and all the other support facilities and ports. If the shipping lines are not allowed to get into these vessel sharing agreements, it will reduce actually the number of cargo carried per ship, increase the number of ships, and despite the kind of infrastructure we have, severely impact the productivity of our key sites. So I think those four, Your Honor, are my recommendations going forward.
Okay, thank you, Cristiano. Just Sir Bert, no, bago si Sir Bert. Let me just ask Sean and Christian very quickly, no. With regard to times of the truckers and times that the vessels are waiting, are we back to pre-congestion timings? Could you give us specific numbers? What was the height during the height of the congestion? We went from how many days to...
I don't want to remember.
No, but pre-congestion, the waiting time, no? Is that the right term, the waiting time?
Yes. On the height of it...
Pre first.
In general, you had no waiting.
No waiting.
Our single-digit hours at worst.
At the height?
And of course, our big customers, they get their berths on arrivals, the guys that come in. At the height, we had 44 vessels waiting.
For how long?
From between 1 or 2 days to 30 days.
Okay. And now?
0.
Back to
Well,
hours.
Yeah, whoever's waiting, for example, will arrive in advance,
Okay.
or they've arrived delayed, so we say, sorry, you can't come in.
Okay.
It's your
And
problem.
same for ATI. Could you state it for the record?
It's the same, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. And for the trucks, would you have data on the trucking or?
The trucking, like I said a while ago, has even been better.
Okay.
Pre-truck ban, we were only doing about 1,600. We're now doing the 2,000.
Okay. And Christian?
To a great degree, Your Honor, it was normal in March. What we've done now, it's still pretty good, and actually the waiting time to get in is much better. The waiting time inside, not so. It's much better than when the truck ban was on, but it's because we're actually doing all the construction and all the work that we had planned in 2014, shutting down roads and repaving them and things like that, which we couldn't do because they had containers on them.
Okay, thank you. Sir Bert, do you want to add to that about the trucking times?
Yeah, okay. We call that period of engagement. Before the pre-February 2014 era, the period is around 12 hours, meaning the truck could do two trips, 24 hours. At the height of the congestion, the period of engagement is 6.5 days. Now it's back to around 12 hours, the period of engagement, except for a few instances where you have delays. I was raising my hands because I forgot to mention about the condition of Road 10 now. DPWH have improved Road 10 actually, except for that short portion between Moriones and Capulong. The whole stretch of Road 10 from the flyover up to C3 is 8 lanes already.
All right, thank you. Our friends from the Manila North Harbor are also here. Richard, you didn't experience congestion, no? During this whole thing, there really was no congestion in the Manila North Harbor, no? So, and I'm guessing until today, there still is no congestion. Was there? I thought the last time you
No.
mentioned that.
No, we didn't have congestion. We didn't have ships waiting for berth. We had ships waiting for cargo sometimes, but not waiting for berth. But, excuse me, something I would like to add. It's not just the port traffic which has grown, it's the other traffic as well. And when you look along R10 going across Delpan, it's not just container trucks, it's the growth of all the other commercial traffic and private traffic as well, which has grown significantly over the period of time. And this is why I think we need to look at this direct access roads into the port, because the other traffic is growing at the same rate or even higher.
Would you have a comment on the current plans of government with regard to the northbound and the southbound current PPP projects being made?
Yeah. Well, you might recall some time ago we were proposing that there should be a direct connection into the ports, like an elevated highway into the ports. I know that takes a bit of time, but what we were suggesting was it maybe negotiate with the existing contractors to have a variation of contract to speed it up. Well, Secretary Abaya, he wrote to the various parties on that to have this investigated, and it is being investigated. But I think the initiatives which have been taken, the truck booking system, of course, will help, but we really need to address the highway one. As Christian was saying, and Sean too, with the growth in trade which is going to continue, we can develop the ports efficiently and keep productivity up there, but we still got to have the hinterland to distribute the cargo. And as you mentioned, well, rail will help, but as it was also mentioned, at the moment, we are still an import-generated port in Manila, and the majority of the volume of cargo is for inner Metro Manila, not outer Metro Manila. So we really must, I would urge, if you could continue to stress with all parties that this should be addressed to get these highways directly into the port. Having them going where they are at the moment is a good initiative, but they still got to get off there and get into the port.
All right,
And,
thank you.
And we are going through a time at the moment where the traffic's not quite so high as it will be later on in the year. But please take note, it's not just port traffic which is growing, all the other traffic is growing as well.
Right. Thank you, Richard. I'd like to ask our two secretaries who thank you for spending your time with us. If they have anything to report or anything to update, Secretary Almendras, then Secretary Domingo.
Your Honor, this is not the venue, but there's another issue on the domestic shipping. I thought my career in shipping ended when I submitted the final memorandum to the President, but the Palace is now in receipt of many complaints regarding domestic shipping rates and congestion in some ports also. I just wanted to put that on record because we might get into trouble if we say there is none, because the business community here will say that there is a problem there. Hopefully it will be assigned to somebody else, Your Honor.
You seem to be doing a good job, Secretary, so ituloy mo na siguro.
There are other problems, Your Honor. No, I wanted to mention, Your Honor, that we fully agree with the presentations of what needs to be done. But I will put on record that I used to be of the opinion that the solution is develop Batangas further, push ships to go out there, until I personally studied the statistics and the data of where the flows are. And it was quite surprising to me when I saw the great disparity that showed that cargoes actually are meant for Metro Manila. And even a bigger surprise is the fact that the majority of it is actually for the city of Manila. Okay, not Pasig, not Marikina, but within the city of Manila, which became a tremendous challenge. I think we have a few years, Your Honor, maybe even 5 years at that. Good capacity on the terminals, efficient utilization of the roads. The dispatch system will definitely help. Utilization of Saturdays and Sundays. Truck drivers continuing the discipline of the single lane, because until the local government code is changed, the jurisdiction for local roads, jurisdiction for national roads, we have insisted and imposed that the national government the national government is the one spending for road repair and road maintenance. And we are insisting, something which has made us quite unpopular, that for any local government to restrict traffic on national roads, they must have the concurrence of the national government agency in charge. And in the case of Manila, it's MMDA. In the case outside Metro Manila, it's DOTC or DPWH. The issue at hand, Your Honor, is we need to make sure that the old idea of restricting flow is the solution to traffic. The whole point is, we learned in the course of this problem, logistics is about continuous flow. You need to keep it moving and not create pile up, which eventually your constricted capacity will never be able to handle. The one key solution to the port congestion was the declaration of Batangas and Subic as a Manila Port 2 and 3. And I've often been asked why it was done. I describe it as something like a coronary bypass. We had a huge amount of containers that needed to be moved. And no matter what we would do, it could not be the capacity, not just of the terminal, but the roads that needed to be used to move that cargo was just not there. So we had to create other ways of moving empties out or allowing containers in other ports. So that is proof that the idea is not to restrict but to create controlled, efficient, continuous flow. And I don't mean that just for the 24-hour truck lanes, but even for moving beyond the national roads, going into the city or the municipal controlled roads. That needs to be the frame of mind, and that is a challenge, Your Honor. I have tried to talk to many local government officials, some of whom have been very progressive in mind and thought and have been supportive of the idea, but equally challenging in some areas. There have been truck bans outside Metro Manila, and you'd be very surprised, that actually affected the flow of goods. And those that work with us know the kind of challenge I had to go through with that. No? But so far it's working, but then there's a new version coming up again. So we need to address that one again. It for legislative interest, Your Honor, maybe there is need to create certain mechanisms that will not allow a local government unit to hold national interest hostage to an individual action in a small area. Nobody can say, I do not like the color of your truck, therefore you cannot pass through this road when I'm awake. It's just, and it's even bad for the economy of the locality. It's even, I try to explain it to somebody that is not good for you, for your location, because you're driving away businesses from that. So rather than create an impression that it's trucks that make a problem, my proposition has always been cargo is a necessity. If you do not want to see trucks, then you better find a way not to eat, because we have to move food and we have to move goods, which is in particular relevant to this committee. I still propose, Your Honor, that there be a legislative study in the possibility of declaring certain things as priority that will allow a national agency to override local action in the interest of making sure that this does not happen again. We've been creative and innovative in how to enforce that without having to call out the National Guards, as I would refer to. But things can change, Your Honor. A few months from now, a new set of leadership will be in different seats. We do not know whether the same kind of progressive minds will be at the helm of these areas. But what this whole crisis taught us is everyone has a stake in their own small way. When we talk to the drivers, or when we talk to the truckers about a single lane, and I thank the leadership of the truck associations who was very helpful to the, some people said, no way. Truck drivers are undisciplined, they'll never follow. Somebody told me the only way you can create a 24-hour truck lane is you have to build a cement wall so that the trucks will not move out of the lane. And Secretary Singson told me that is no way. No way is DPWH going to allow that. But I think now we've proven that. With a few exceptions, most truck drivers adhere to the single file. There are no parking zones. Just today I got a report again, sir. If they do not cooperate, the tow trucks will be there this afternoon again. So please, we have an ongoing agreement, Your Honor, that there is no need to send out the tow trucks if the drivers cooperate that these areas are no parking zones. So the complexity says we need to institute, because everybody is now talking about how to make sure not to make it happen again, Your Honor. I think the cooperation that has been created throughout this crisis has created channels of communication and opportunities of working together. But the one factor that I am scared of that can create the event again, that can create a similar event, if not a worst event, is a single act by one entity that will stifle the flow of goods, which will impact the whole economy, Your Honor. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you, Cabsec. And we'll take that into consideration. I'm imagining it doesn't even have to be a very long law. It's just an amendment to the LGC, no? Clarifying that certain national issues must take precedent over, must be considered, no, over some certain local concerns. No, we'll look into that, no, and unfortunately, it won't go to this committee. It'll probably go to the Committee on Local Government. But definitely, we'll look into that, and this can be the best reason why we should push for that, no. So let me ask Secretary Domingo if he has a few statements to share with the committee regarding 1 year after our port congestion issues. Secretary.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm very glad to hear of the improvements that have been done at the ports and all around system-wise in terms of the increase in the capacity of off-dock container yards, in terms of the more throughput capacity being done because of the improvements in port operations, to the system that's going to be launched in terms of the automated booking of trucks, all of this will increase really the capacity of the ports, which means that we will be able to handle surges in utilization or flow of containers through those ports. Having said that, I think it would be good for us in terms of medium to long-term planning to see how much capacity we can flow through the two international ports, the north and south, over a 5 to 10 year period. Because by my calculation, if given that the economy is expected to continue to be strong, we should experience a minimum export growth of about 5% per year and possibly 10% or higher. Now, if we look at, let's say, a 10% growth, which is an optimistic scenario, and assuming that the containers will also increase by about 10% per year, that means that in 7 years, we will need 100% increase in capacity. And if you take maybe 50% of that, maybe it will take 4 years to reach 50% increase in capacity given a 10% annual growth rate. If you take the lower end, which is 5%, it will take about 14 years, no, to double the capacity, or maybe about 8 or 9 years to increase the capacity by, the load by 50%. And so we have to look closely at how much capacity, additional capacity, the two ports can bear. So if you're going to tell us that the two ports can increase at most another 50% of their current capacity, then it's possible that we may run out of capacity within 4 to 8 years. So what is the solution going forward? Do we build a new port, for example, which takes 5 to 10 years to build? Or what are the other options? That's just my take on this. That long term, we have to start thinking about this situation, because the growth scenario for the Philippines is going to be multi-decade. It's not going to be a 3 to 5 year spurt. It's going to be a 10, 20, 30 year growth path. And so we have to start thinking long term about that. Second is just a comment on prices for both shipping and trucking. It's good to hear that trucking prices have come off from the highs, although it would be nice to still see further improvement in the price of trucking charges. Still, it remains about double of what it was pre-congestion. And then on the shipping cost, even though there has been an announcement by the shipping companies that they have taken off the port congestion charges, I hear from the private sector, and I'm sure they will elaborate on this later, that what they've done actually, what many of the shipping companies have done, have actually shifted the cost to another category. So the premium that's being paid per container is still the same as before. So we may want to address that concern. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Secretary. Hindi ko po tinext si Secretary dun sa sinabi niya kasi yun talaga yung next na pag-uusapan natin. But thank you for raising that issue. No? But before we go to the logistics cost, if Christian, if it's okay, I'd like to refer to this slide. No? Yard utilization, okay na tayo. No? We've sort of gotten there. I mean, we're okay there already. Vessel performance, if I'm not mistaken, we're back to normal already. Truck turnaround, we mentioned it already, we're sort of back na rin. External empty capacity, that's been addressed no, with trying to move them out already. No? Import backlog, we haven't talked about that. Is that still a concern?
Actually, it's the opposite.
Mm-hmm.
People have Secretary Almendras has some good anecdotes on this, but because of the paranoia that a lot of people had, and justified paranoia in September, October, they actually imported way too much.
Okay.
To the point where At one point, we had our container terminal in Ecuador is the biggest reefer exporting terminal in the world. We had more reefers in MICT in Manila than we did in Ecuador.
In Ecuador.
Because of that, the Jollibees of the world bringing in a lot. So actually now, you have a lot of this stuff sitting in the port that they're
Trying to
clearing
dispatch
and
as fast
trying
as
to
they can.
dispatch.
Okay. So more or less, the five things that you had pointed out, have been resolved or are in the process of being resolved finally. We're really left with the logistics costs, no? And this is really important because at the end of the day, for the consumer, the port congestion equates to higher costs. No, I mean, if our goods remain there for X number of days, but the prices didn't go up, then I don't think our consumers would. This wouldn't be an issue that would be very important for them. But because the port congestion led to an increase in prices or an increase in the cost of doing business, then it became an issue of national interest and of interest to our people. No? Now, the reports we've received from both media and the private sector is that our cost of doing business, specifically the shipping costs, and later we'll ask Attorney Max and Mr. Patrick to give a report on this, is that it's still high. No, in fact, even with the normalization of the berthing times and the waiting times, mataas pa rin yung cost natin from the shipping lines. No? And specifically, they pinpoint to a number of shipping lines. And again, we're not just talking about the congestion fee, because the fees have changed names. No? It's now an emergency cost. No? I'm not even sure what that means. No? And secondly, and later our friends from the trucking associations can help clarify why the trucking costs also have not gone down back to, or at least close to, the pre-congestion levels. Kung di ako nagkakamali, we went up to 50 to 100%, no? And you justify this in previous hearings that if your waiting time goes from 12 hours to 6 days, you really need to increase your costs. But ngayon, we're back to 12 hours now. Now, I would like to know, one is, why haven't we brought this down? Two is that, are there plans to bring this down, and when? I also understand that there's a lead time to all of these things, and you need to let the market adjust. But we'd like to get firm commitments now regarding these costs. And if there are no firm commitments, I'd like to get word from our secretaries on what can be done regarding these costs. Because during the height of the congestion, naiintindihan natin na talagang naperwisyo, nagkaroon ng delay, and somebody had to pay for that. But now that we're back to pre-congestion levels, in fact, we're even more efficient now. No? Can we even bring the cost lower because we're even more efficient now? And I imagine with the booking system, with the connector roads, we'll be even more efficient as we move along now. So let me start with the shipping lines. Is it going to be Attorney Max or Patrick? Oh, Patrick, go ahead. Can you help explain to us these costs that the shipping lines have added and what seems to be the plan for these costs?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just to make it clear, and this has been explained in some of the other forums, port congestion surcharge and the ECRS, as we call it, are two different things. The PCS, or the port congestion surcharge, addresses the costs that the vessels actually incur while waiting for a berth, while the ECRS answers for the landside logistical expenses. We do agree that for the past 4 to 5 weeks, the situations in the ports have actually normalized. Our ships are now docking in time, or those remaining services are now currently docking on time. But I also have to advise you that shipping lines, as of the moment, are still reviewing their current services. There are still certain trade lanes or certain services that have not come back yet, which shows why there was a time that for a couple of weeks or for a couple of days, one terminal wouldn't have a ship in port. There will be for the next let's say for the next couple of weeks, we'll see some realignment on the way the services are happening. Now, as far as the implementation of the port congestion surcharge is concerned, we have received or we have seen announcements from our member lines, and by the end of April, we can safely say that about 15 or 14 to 15 carriers will actually be taking out this port congestion surcharge. And in terms of volume, this translates to about 70 or 80% of the volume that's being carried into Manila.
So by the end of April, 80% will take away their congestion fee, no?
Well, that's 80. Not all.
So 80% of the market.
It's 80% of the market,
Okay.
or 80%
And,
of incoming containers.
Okay. What about the emergency cost? Ano ho ba yung emergency cost na yan?
Mr. Chair, the emergency cost recovery surcharge covers for the spike in the tracking rates of moving an empty container from the depot to the terminal when we reposition containers out. You see, we have a container imbalance. For every 4 containers that actually come in as laden, only one of them are actually loaded out or is loaded with cargo, but the rest of the 3 containers are actually moved out as empty. So what happens is that most times, most shipping lines actually move empty containers from the off-dock depots to the port, and the rates have increased quite considerably, and that will cover for it.
But pre-congestion, that was already the case, right? That ratio was already the case pre-congestion. No?
That is correct, sir.
So
But
why was that not charged during pre-congestion times?
Mr. Chair, during that time, the costs were still within limits of what a line can actually pay. But when the tracking cost went up quite considerably, then it's about time that we actually charge the consignees for it.
Okay, so ituturo mo yung tracking later sa sagot nila. Baka kayo rin ituro nila mamaya, no? Okay, so you're giving a commitment that this port congestion fees will be out by, or at least a majority will be out by the end of April.
Yes, that's correct, sir.
Okay. Of course, we'll see you again in May if that's not the case, no? But I don't want to see any of you in May, to be frank.
I hope not, Mr. Chair.
Now, regarding the emergency cost, when will this go down? Are you going to say when the truckers lower their cost, this will also go down?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Let me clarify that. Do you charge the shipping lines? I thought you charge the importers are the ones who pay for these costs. Pati ho ba shipping lines yung charge ninyo?
For movement of empties.
For movement of empties?
Empties, yes.
Okay. So you do charge them?
Yes. For moving the empties from the off-dock CYs to the pier.
Okay.
They usually contract us.
Okay. And in turn, who do you charge for this? The truckers? No, you charge the importers.
We charge the importers, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Tama ho ba? The importers don't pay you, no? They pay so your fee is embedded in the shipping, or are you paid separately?
We're paid separately. For
Okay.
the land movement, we're paid separately.
Okay. But you charge the shipping for the empty containers?
For the empty containers. If
Isn't...
they ask us to move the empty containers from the off-dock CY to the port.
Okay. Why are you charging the importers for the empty containers? That's not their container, right? Or is that their container?
Well, sir, Mr. Chair, the containers are actually the line's equipment.
Okay.
Now, the charging or the imposition of the emergency cost recovery surcharge is to cover for the spike in the prices that were actually hitting the carriers.
So,
Because
but
we-
now that it's normalized, so you are charging for previous costs, actually, for recovery?
Not really, sir. Actually, those costs are still happening. We continue to pay the higher tracking costs as to what it used to be before.
Okay. So in short, tinutukoy nga ho ninyo yung tracking.
As of the moment, sir, well, sir, it's the tracking. And mind you, sir, not all shipping lines are actually charging this cost.
No, not all shipping lines. Now, I have a list here, actually. Well, out of 20 here, it seems about 16 are charging it, no?
Mr. Chair, we have about 39 members.
Yes. So, even if it's 16, that's a significant number, no? Actually, ang lumalabas, if you add the port congestion and the emergency cost, because some will have zero emergency cost but a high port congestion, some will have it split across these two items, no? It's roughly about $400 to $600, no? That we add on. Now, $400 to $600, but the total cost, it's almost 30 to 40%, or maybe 60% more for an added charge, no, for for the importers, roughly, no?
Yes, sir. I do agree that it's quite an amount if you take a look at it from the time before the port congestion. But these are just merely cost recovery charges. These are actually the line's expenses that is just being passed on. If we, for example, put that in the freight, then it will be at the end of the day, it will have a higher quantum, considering that we now have to cover for the taxes or for the agency commission that a shipping agent will have to incur.
Well,
so this is more of a transparent way of charging them.
Okay. Well, I'm not commenting on how you're charging it now. I'm just really looking at the bottom line, no? Because we're looking at a 50 to 60% increase in your charges because of these two costs. Are these temporary costs? Or are these forever na hubatong nandito? Yung congestion, I guess, is temporary. This emergency cost, is that temporary or a permanent charge?
That will be temporary, Mr.
Okay.
Chair.
And do you have a commitment also to take this out by the end of April?
We will speak to our members about that, but I don't think it will happen by the end of April, considering that the same costs that we are incurring are still in place, Mr.
Okay.
Chair.
Let me ask our private sector partners now. Elsie is raising her hand.
Good afternoon, sir. I would like to thank everyone, especially our port manager, for having a good, efficient. That's why we don't have port congestion anymore. But question is, since our economy is consumer-driven, so we have more import, and this will boils down to the consumption cost or the food cost as well. During the height or before the port congestion, what we got charges, I have all the receipts here. We are being charged $150 before. And then they're charging us port congestion fee, they're charging us emergency cost recovery, and as well as, I don't know what is this container imbalance. So it came out during the height, minimum of $900 to $1,500. So now, since we don't have any more congestion, I just want to ask the shipping lines. They're just changing the name of the term. No more congestion surcharge, but they convert it to container imbalance for $500 and emergency cost recovery for $400.
Sorry, Elsie.
Effective April 1.
So let me clarify. Pati pala yung container imbalance is a
Yes.
new charge.
Yes.
That's also a new charge.
They have the charge before, but it's only $150.
Okay.
But now what they did, they charge it 300%.
So,
Now
okay,
it's 400.
let me clarify. Pre-congestion, your cost was about $150.
Yes, sir.
Height of congestion, it's about $900. So it's not 60%, it's times 6.
During the height, some of them
It's
charging-
600%, not
No,
60%.
charging 400 to 500
Okay,
during
so
the
just to
congestion.
be clear, no? Okay, 400 to 500. Now,
Since there's no more congestion, they're still charging. And there's a new memo that they will charge for container imbalance $500.
plus 500.
Now, the rate is $500 plus the recovery cost, $400. So now it's a total of $900. So nothing changed.
It
Before-
actually went higher after
Yeah.
we've solved the congestion.
Yes.
Tumaas.
Tumaas pa.
Okay. Sige. And this, do you want to comment on that from the private sector?
Good afternoon po, sir. I'm a customs broker, medyo hindi kami represented dito, but I'm the AVP of Aduana. Actually po, sir, for the clarification, pre-congestion po, ang charges po ng shipping line sa atin ay meron silang THC, DOCS fee. Yung CIC po, ito ay pinoprotesta po ng mga brokers, ang importers, kasi ang ibig sabihin kasi nila to ay ito yung imbalance. Yung marami daw yung ating import, konti export, but we object for this. And then, ang congestion po, nanganak po yung emergency, yung for congestion, ang imbalance po, tumaas pa rin siya. Hindi pa kasama po rito yung deposit na hiningi nila sa containers natin na nagre-range by 20 footer, nagre-range sa 9,000 or 5,000 and 10 to 15,000 per containers. And then po, as of now, nagpalit lang po sila from tinanggal ang yung congestions, but Dilipat-lipat po yung mga charges and the total of by $900 for by 20-footer and by the 20-footer ay $450. In all, wala nagbabago and we clear more that the congestion is already resolved. We appeal to the shipping lines ibalik po sa pre-congestion yung charges. Thank you po.
Ray, klaklaruhin ko So, do you agree with the numbers of LC? Tama ba?
Apa.
Around 150 pre-congestion.
Actually, sir, no, ang 20-footer by pre-congestion ay nagre-range lang siya sa 9,000 pesos. Ang current
So, $200,
Apo,
mga
ang
$200.
40 footers po natin ay nagre-range lang siya sa 15 to 16,000.
Okay.
Now po, ang 20 footers natin during congestion and after congestion ay nagre-range siya sa 28 to 30. Plus deposit mo na container deposit po. Nagre-range siya sa mga 35. And then sa 40 footer po natin, that time ng pre-congestion ay nagre-range lang siya ng 15 to 20 o depende po sa shipping lines po. Sa ngayon po ay nagre-range na siya sa 53 to 60 plus counter deposit na 10,000 to 15. Sa ngayon po, mayroon ng shipping lines na nagtaas po na kaniyang counter deposit.
Okay. So that's about but that's a deposit. Mababalik naman 'yun, 'di ba? Yung deposit.
Yung ang nakakalungkot po nakarating po ng isang 1 year to makuha yung aming refund. At saka yung processing po ng shipping line ngayon ay umaabot po tayo ng 1 day. Yun po ang kina-question natin. And sa Bureau of Customs po, we clear the goods at an hour. But in processing the shipping lines, we cost 1 day.
Okay. So, Ray, no, if you can you add yung mga cost na nasabi mo, and I'll get back to you para we're very clear kung magkano yung cost. Pre-congestion, during the congestion, and current, no? Yung total costs. If you can compute, and I'll get back to you, no? Let me go to the truckers, no? Kasi kayo yung tinuturo ng mga shipping lines. Alam ko, nagtaas rin tayo ng prices during the congestion. We talked about that. Na-justify ho niyon by saying that you went from 2 trips in 1 day to 1 trip in 1 week, no? Roughly about a week. And nagtaas talaga. No? And I think, naman yun, no? That was openly discussed. No?
Yes.
Ngayon ho, alam ko nagbaba kayo ng kaunti, no? Pero bakit hindi pa siya bumabalik dun sa pre-congestion level ng charges natin?
Ganito po yan. Pre-congestion, that was February, Metro Manila rate is in the range of 11,000. Metro Manila rate po yun.
Yes.
At the height of the congestion period, the Metro Manila rate has gone up to about 27,000. Now, it's back to 13,000. Kumisan 12,000 pa nga.
Let me ask, do you concur sa ating customs broker tsaka sa hindi daw umiiling po si LC? How much ang po ba? Magkano po ang charge sa inyo?
Baka hindi tracker ang kausap niya.
Tanungin ho natin.
I can prove to you, I brought the receipt. This is an importation, one of my member, importing goods of food. The truck charged them 30,000 per container.
Now?
Yes.
Membro ho ba ng kanilang mga grupo? O baka naman
I doubt it.
And and also this is food. Kaya the food cost really will go high.
I doubt it. As I've said, Mr. Senator, right now the going rate is for a 20-footer, moving it around Metro Manila. Moving it around Metro Manila is only around 12 to 13,000.
Kayo, Mr. Swansing, no, Mr. Teddy, you're a group of truckers, di ba?
Yes.
Majority ho ba ng truckers, pag pinagsama niyo yung kayong dalawa, majority na ng truckers natin, ano? Di ba? You're the biggest group,
Port
right?
Port
operating truckers. You're the majority,
yes,
right? Sorry, Miss Chua. Miss Chua, I'd like to clarify, no? Let's be specific. Yung kapartner ng trucker, are they part of their organizations?
I'm not sure kung partner nila, but the receipt, this was reported by one of our member ng federation, because he is in food business.
May sinasabi ko silang reefer. Was that a reefer or just a regular?
Regular
container?
yan. Every month,
20-foot container? Regular 20-foot? 40-foot?
40-foot.
And you're saying na 13,000 na lang yung
Oo.
regular
Oo.
40-foot ho ninyo?
Sa amin, 30,000.
Actually, ang Mr. Senator, ang transaction no sa pier, yung mga trucks, para rin ho yung chicken.
May market forces tayo dyan.
May market, tsaka maraming layers ho kung minsan ng middleman yan eh.
Were you talking to a middleman or directly to the trucking operator?
Directly to the broker who has consistently...
The broker is a middleman.
Baka daw ho, tinataga kayo ng mga broker o nandito yung customs broker, baka pwede yung sumagot.
Explain,
Pero
please.
nagtataas din sila ng singil eh.
Sino po?
Yung mga logistic, forwarder.
Ay, hindi. Iba pa ba yung forwarder? Yes, go ahead, Teddy.
Good afternoon, everybody. Ted Hervasio po sa INTA. Well, siguro pa you have to check on your tracker. Kasi maraming cost component. If you're talking directly to us, kung ano yung rate na sinasabi namin, that's what you will have. But since dadaan nga kayo sa broker, meron pang mga agents yan that posible na yung rate na binabayad nyo ay hindi talaga purely for the tracker. And another thing, is that a reefer container? Kasi if you're talking of food, it might be a reefer container, which
Mas
is
mahal.
mas mataas ng konti yan kasi yung risk ay mas malaki. So paki-clarify lang po mabuti yun. Dahil mayroon ngayon na since market forces ang nagde-demand, mayroon ngayon na bumababa pa ang rate kaysa dun sa what we are saying na binaba namin. Pero dun sa sinasabi niya at 30,000, sa amin pong hanay, wala na kaming narinig na ganyang presyo.
Okay. I'm sorry na I forgot to acknowledge si Mr. Olego. You're also a tracker group po, no?
Yes po.
Oho. Kayo rin ho ba nasa ganoong range na rin yung presyo ninyo? 11, 13,000?
Yun po ang rate namin. Kaya po yung mga nangangailangan po ng truck, direkto po kayo sa tracker. Hindi po dadaan sa mga broker na kung sinong kausap nyo. Pwede naman kayo tumawag sa amin diretso eh.
Sorry, Mr. Olego, Mr. Hervasio, and si Mr. Swansing. Nandito si Attorney Hines, no, LTFRB. I-request ko po siya na siya po yung referee ho natin dito, no? We're saying that your prices now, currently, are more or less back to
Yes.
pre-congestion rates.
Yes, Your Honor.
And ano ho yan? Yung members ninyo are transparent about the rates sa inyong associations.
Nag-aaway-away nga po sa pagpapababaan ng rates ngayon.
Okay. Attorney Hines, can we ask you to look into this being LTFRB para makita ho natin kung talagang bumaba ang rates ng ating trackers?
Yes, Your Honor, Mr. Senator. It's time really for us to tingnan po namin dahil at the height of the port congestion, as per discussion, conference, and consultation among the government agencies and the private, si Mr. Ernie Ordonez was very instrumental on this, Your Honor. We issued then a board resolution requiring the trackers na i-unbundle po nila yung kanilang rates that they were charging. Yung 27,000, ano po ba dapat dyan? Yung basic tracking fee, which we said should be the pre-congestion rate. Then, ano yung mga idinagdag ninyo that contributed from 11,000 to 27,000. So that was where we left during the pre-congestion meeting. Congestion, the height of the congestion. Now that we are hearing and we are actually monitoring din po na talaga nang we are back to normal, then we have to exercise our regulatory power on fixing rates and review of the rates periodically. We will do it, Mr. Senator.
All right.
Your Honor.
So, Attorney, just a second, Mr. Rebao. So, Attorney Hines, no, we have the commitment of LTFRB to again convene, do a check sa ating trackers na bumalik na sila sa, kung di man bumalik, kasi last year pa naman yun, malapit dun sa ating pre-congestion rates. And to coordinate with DTI, I know Yusek Dimagiba and I know Secretary Yusek was the one assigned to do this, no? And to be able to publish these rates to the private sector. Is that okay, Yusek Dimagiba?
Yes, sir.
How have you done that? Were you able to previously publish
the tracking rates? No, not yet.
Okay, yung ating post-congestion tracking rates, no?
Yeah.
These importers you've met with them, no? Many times, if I'm not mistaken.
Many times. Yeah.
Oh.
Even the shipping lines, we also dialogue.
Oh,
with
we
them.
will get back to the shipping lines, no? But still on the tracking rates. Well, we have a commitment. Kayo pong tatlo, ano ho ba kayo? 90% ng port trackers? So 100% na ba kayo? Yes, sir.
Chairman, meron po kung ano sa inyo.
Sige po.
Tungkol po sa trabaho ng export po. 1 day o 2 days kami preparing sa ng pagkuha ng container. So, dito naman po, meron kaming mga charges sa ganun sistema. Kaya nahirapan po kaming kumuha ng empty pagdating sa preparasyon. So, ang nangyayari po, iba na ang rate namin doon.
Okay. Teka lang wag muna tayo dyan. We're still at the importer, no?
Yeah.
Kayo, your majority. Are you all?
Yes.
100% na ho kayo, no, ng lahat ng trackers. So,
Mhm.
Attorney Hines, LTFRB, and USIC ni Magiba can help publish these rates to our importers. And kayo naman isusumbong nyo naman kung hindi yun yung totoong rate, no? At kung meron pang dagdag, no? But I do suggest that you work with the trackers directly, no? At least in terms of your logistics costs, no? Okay. Shipping lines. Bumaba naman daw po yung rates nila. It has gone down already. So yung justification natin of the emergency costs, what's the basis for that if indeed they have gone down? Or are you saying that they also did not go down in their charge sa inyo?
Well, Mr. Chair, thank you. I'd like to thank the trackers for the 10% decrease. But actually, what has happened was we had a rate increase of 300%.
Yeah.
So that's something that we have to study of how we handle the ECRS.
Actually, no, on that note, Mr. Ronas, no, ang alam ko nga you went 300%, no, 11,000 to 27,000. So times 3, kulang pa kasi 36,000 lang yon. Ang rinig ko is that you went down by 10 or 20%. But today in hearing, you're saying that you've gone down back to 11.
Back to 12, 13,000.
Baka naman today lang yan. Hindi naman. Ilang
Hindi
weeks na na ganyan po yung presyo
Matagal
natin.
na yan. Since, what you call this? Even before the Holy Week, ganyan lang ang rates.
Ba't ganon? Why do we have a disjoint in the market forces? Because the shipping industry, you're saying that they have not gone down that much, and the importers are saying you have not gone down that much. You know,
I don't know whom they're talking to, but as far as the trackers here are concerned, Teddy Herbacio even lost the contract because his price was higher than the...
Okay, sige Teddy.
Well, actually po, yung 27,000 na tracking rate is not the suggested rate of the association. It's only 17,000 for Metro Manila. The 27,000 tracking rate happened during the height of the congestion wherein walang available na track.
Okay.
It's the broker who's dealing with the tracker. Na they're the one who's paying us. In my case, pag sinabi kong ang rate ko is 15,000, sige, kunin ko yung truck mo. But I don't have trucks dahil nakapatong yung empty at wala akong pagsulian ng empty. So I'll pay you 27,000. Do something about my cargo. So, ang gagawin namin, bababa namin yung container, not on the yard, but in some other place na nagbabayad din kami and get that price.
Yeah, Teddy, yan yung height ng congestion.
Exactly.
Ngayon, hindi na ganyan ngayon.
Wala nang ganyan ngayon.
Let me ask si LC, yung presyo ba na yan? Baka naman through the broker yan. Or was it directly to a tracking operations? Sige, Mr. Chua.
Senator, excuse me. I attended a meeting of the NCC yesterday, and there was a lady sitting beside me. She attended a meeting 1 or 2 days ago. She told me that she had a meeting with the Truckers Association, and the Truckers Association told them that they cannot lower the trucking fee very much. Only can lower it by 10%. I don't know whether this is true or not. And 10% of what? Which amount? I'm not sure about that because we did not discuss this any further. So 10% lower based on 27,000?
Probably, Your Honor, the gentleman was referring to the meeting held about 2 days ago.
Just a second, sir. I think our two secretaries need to leave now, so we'd like to thank them. Please leave Yusek Dimagiba, Secretary Domingo. Thank you, Secretary.
Your Honor, may I clarify because I was in that meeting?
Yes.
The Truckers Association set a maximum or a suggested trucking rate, which most people violated at the height of the congestion.
Okay.
So the 10% is on that one, because I was also very curious in the interest of saving time, because I am quite sure the argument will be very long this afternoon, Your Honor. The price that they set was only 15,
Yes.
14.
Yes.
But nobody followed it. People started charging 27, 30, there's even 32,000. We saw that.
Yung 10% less is on the 32 or on the 15?
On the 15, Your Honor.
On the 15.
May I be excused?
Thank you.
Thank you.
So, to be fair, it wasn't the market rate that you decreased 10% on, but the suggested rate.
Yes, sir. That's why I was mentioning what I was mentioning is absolute figure, para mas
madaling
maintindihan. Even if you go now to the pier and you have a cargo that you want to move out and bring it somewhere in Metro Manila, the rate is that.
Okay. Sige ho. I'm going to again request Attorney Hines and Yusek Dimagiba to get to the bottom of this, no. Hindi ko naman ho sinasabi na may nagsisinungaling dito. Ang sinasabi ko lang baka hindi nagkakaintindihan, and Ms. Elsie and Mr. Chua, since you represent groups at magkakaharap tayo dito, I expect that once these rates are published openly, that they will stick to those rates, no. In that meeting with Yusek Dimagiba and Attorney Hines, no. Now, I have a question. Let's say that we agreed, no, that these are the rates, and then we find out eventually that there were other charges that we were not transparent in this meeting. May penalties ba tayong pwedeng ibigay, Attorney Hines, kung kunyari in our hearings hindi nagkakaintindihan or iba yung information na binibigay sa committee? I mean, I don't think there's ever been a trade committee that filed contempt on anyone, no, for lying. But with regard to LTFRB, meron ba tayong penalties na pwedeng ibigay kung may mga tinatago pala yung mga iba't ibang grupo? I mean, for everybody here, no, hindi lang sa truckers, no, pati sa importers, pati sa customs brokers, no. Meron ho bang ganoon?
Para po magkaroon kami ng penalty on violation is we have to adopt kung ano man po ang mapapagkasunduan na ceiling, for example, or a certain yung ceiling ng mga prices po nila, and if they go beyond that ceiling, then we have to impose it in a memorandum circular that the board will promulgate and publish in accordance with the rules, Your Honor, para maging applicable. If it go beyond that, just like in any other terms and conditions, violation na po yan ng franchise. That's what we call overcharging, and that's a violation of their franchise. And that's right now, prohibited po yan ng ating Joint Administrative Order 2014-01 na nagtaas po ng napakataas ang mga penalties. Ito po yung colorum na 1 million. For this kind of violation, overcharging, first offense would be 5,000. Second offense would be 10, 3-month suspension of the unit. Then last would be third, 15,000 and cancellation of the franchise.
Okay.
Pero kailangan po meron kaming
kasunduan
at gawing memorandum circular.
Okay.
Yun pong kasunduan na yun. Kasi ngayon po, they have their own regulations as an organization para pong self-regulation lang po nila. We have not yet gone beyond that. Ibig sabihin, adapt it as a policy of the board and set it as a fixed rate, or not only an advisory, not only as a suggested rate, but really tracking rate charges.
And that's within your mandate, no, as LTFRB?
Yes, sir. That's provided for under our mandate.
Pero ayaw na ho nating umabot doon, no? We would prefer na yung pag-uusap ng sektor, yung mas mangingibabaw, no? So, Attorney, I think malinaw naman yung next steps natin. Tipunin natin sila. Let's make sure that it's back to kung di man umabot sa pre-congestion, malapit doon. and then the private sector can attend that meeting. And if kung talagang, kasi nung height ng congestion, nagkakaintindihan naman tayo na tataas talaga yung cost eh. Diba? I mean, we sort of all understood that somebody had to pay for, you know, the blunder, which was the congestion at our ports. No? But now that we're even more efficient, hindi tama na mataas pa rin yung rates natin. So, can we leave this issue na muna on the truckers now? I'd like to go to the shipping. Yusek Dimagi ba, is there a similar, can we do a similar procedure with our shipping industry? Is there such a thing as overcharging in the shipping industry?
Actually, I was about to suggest earlier, with your permission, as we sit down with the trucker and sit down the shipping line, I was thinking of how we work with the OFC of DOJ when we addressed the pricing issue of onion and garlic. So maybe with the permission of the committee and the chair, I would propose that we already involve the OFC of DOJ in this issue of addressing shipping lines rates, because the answer to the question of whether DTI can look into shipping rates, I don't think we have that specific mandate in law. But the OFC, the DOJ operates on a more general basis when do review the issue of pricing of garlic and onion. It looks at the area of restraint of trade or maybe unfair competition. So, we heard the commitment that they will reduce prices by 80% by the end of month, both for port congestion and
hindi ho 80%. 80% of the market, as represented by their members, will take away the congestion fee. No? Just to be fair, no, yun yung commitment. Ho. Go ahead, Yusek.
And before Secretary left, he also whispered to me, maybe we can also communicate directly with the shipping lines on what are their current pricing policy in the Philippines, gather data along that line, and maybe measure whether, in light of the report of the two port operators, the rates are still reasonable or no longer reasonable. Is it stifling competition? Are they acting some sort of in agreement or in concert?
You don't want to say the C word, ah?
No, I don't want to use that.
Doesn't want to say the C word.
Because
okay.
we have not yet signed the competition law. No, hopefully that's where we actually have to go into, at least in the present Congress. That law will address a lot of the issues we're looking at now, more on a competitive basis, because these are all interests of business versus business. Wala po akong, at the end of the day, it's a consumer, no? But I cannot see any provision in the Consumer Act at the moment that we can use in reference to, at least he can say that under the franchise it could be overcharging. I could not say that under the Consumer Act someone charging a reasonable rate could be a form of deceptive sales practice, because the Consumer Act would only cover consumer, but these are businessmen.
Okay. Mr. Ronas, no? The truckers, what are they charging you? Because you mentioned that the emergency cost is actually based on the high trucking cost that they're charging you. Now, we have a commitment from the truckers that they're back to pre-congestion rates, although that's being challenged, no? In your experience, are they back to pre-congestion rates, or are they still charging congestion rates?
As far as we know, Mr. Chair, they're still charging the same rates. There hasn't been any changes so far.
If indeed they will be charging pre-congestion rates, then that's an impetus for you to decrease your emergency cost item.
Yes, sir. Okay. That is true.
So in short, yung meeting ho natin, Attorney Hines, mahalaga rin sa ating shipping companies. Because, can I consider that a commitment, Mr. Ronas? That if they do go back to pre-congestion rates, you will consider taking away the emergency cost item and the other items here?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So, mahalaga ho yun na, yes, may gusto kayong idagdag.
Mr. Chair, clarification lang po on the charges na sinasabi na charge namin sa shipping. We're not collecting tracking fees from the shipping lines. We're collecting tracking fees from the shippers themselves or the broker. But the only thing that we're getting from the shipping lines are accreditation for us to move their cargoes. But no tracking fees are being collected from the shipping lines by the trackers.
Excuse me, Mr. Chair. Yes, that is true. There are different tracking companies and there are different tracking moves. Mr. Hervasio is saying that this is a transaction of merchant haulage that happens between the consignees. In our case, we also engage tracking companies to move our empty containers from the empty depot to the terminal. So we also employ trucks.
So it's another company. Okay. So why are we charging the importers for empty containers which has nothing to do with their transaction?
Mr. Chair, the charges before, as I have mentioned, was very low compared to what it is now. What happened was that these containers actually came from imports. Freight rates have never really gone up. It's just that we had to recover the losses, and it's very transparent. In our case, it's very transparent. What has happened was when empty positioning cost of these containers that were drawn from imports have gone up by 300%, we had no choice but to charge the importers.
Is this the penalty? Ito ba yung penalty na that is given to the because of the empties na hindi nagagalaw, hindi nalalabas? May penalty yun, di ba? We were talking about. This is different.
This is different. Okay. This is the usual operations of a shipping line.
Okay, because your other option is to include that in the freight cost, no? That's probably okay. So you're saying that you have higher costs because of the empties, and you need to charge it somewhere. That basically it. No?
That is correct, sir.
Okay, and that's the cost of your total operations, no?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, and part of that cost is you hiring truckers directly. It may not be these truckers, but truckers in general to bring the empties back to you.
Yes, sir.
Okay, and that will continue until we decrease the number of empties in the Philippines.
Basically, Mr. Chair, this situation will continue considering that we're importing more than we are exporting. We have a trade imbalance. We import more than we actually export. So, as I mentioned, for every 4 containers that come in, only 1 container actually goes out laden. The 3 other containers are actually moved out as empty containers to supply other areas.
Elsie.
Yeah, Senator, how come they will charge the importer? This is the question, which is correctly. Why are we being penalized for? And other than emergency costs, you're still charging the container imbalance, wherein before pre-congestion, it's only $150. Why is it now you have to change it to $500?
Mr. Chair, one of the things about what we have noticed as far as imports is concerned is that the freight is actually prepaid. It is prepaid by the shipper from abroad. So at the end of the day, the consignees actually end up with the local charges. Now, all freight costs are actually picked up by the supplier or their supplier. Rarely do we, there is a percentage of import freight being paid here in Manila, but most of the time it is paid abroad. So all of these charges or all of these freight costs is actually agreed with the supplier, especially when we're talking about global accounts, for a certain carrier like some of the big multinationals. It's we participate in a bid, and all of these charges and all of these freight costs are actually decided abroad. So at the end of the day, if say for example, we have received many requests in the past that instead of putting it as a local charge or as an added charge to the consignee, why not include it in the freight? That's always been a request. Put it all together. Now, several decades ago, there was a big clamor from the, if I'm not mistaken, the World Shippers Council that shipping lines should be a little bit more transparent in the way they actually charge the client. So eventually, that was a time that terminal handling charges came out. We had to separate the documentation fee. So this is how all these things evolved. So in the case when the port congestion happened in Manila, which was a very abnormal thing, it was not covered by any contract. It was very gray as to how long it was going to take. The only action that principals or ship owners can do is to charge the port congestion surcharge and the ECRS. Once again, we'd like to say that this is a temporary charge and it will all go away.
Hindi ho eh. I'm getting confused by your logic, no? Because if the emergency cost is because of the imbalance, that imbalance is going to continue for a decade, no? I mean, until the time that I'm sorry, hindi naman decade. It will continue for a few years, no? From our friends from PhilExport here. Now, that was there even before the port congestion. That will remain for the next few years, no? So, is it the trucker's cost? Is it the imbalance? We're trying to pinpoint ano ba talaga yung binabayaran nila. Because, in fairness naman, during the congestion, everyone sort of agreed, okay, we need to pay more because it's really hampering our operations. But now that we're even more efficient than pre-congestion, I can't imagine your margins change that much in a year's time. That suddenly, or were you operating at a loss a year ago? I don't think you were operating at a loss a year ago. So, you're tripling the costs for every transaction, but we're back to the same situation as last year, no? So, that's really the question in people's minds, no? What has changed so much since pre-congestion times, which is pre-February 2014, that has caused us to put these charges in. Hindi ko maintindihan ano talaga yung rason, eh? Because if it's, as you said, the trucker's cost, if we can get the trucker's cost to lower their prices, then we can delete that. But if it's the imbalance, that's another matter altogether. And I think we've had an imbalance for the last 3 decades, no? Since 1997.
Mr. Chair, the port congestion surcharge and the ECRS is different from the container imbalance charge. The container imbalance charge has been there even before the pre-congestion days. The only costs that were actually added was the port congestion surcharge to answer for the waiting of the ships and the ECRS that addresses the spike in the landside costs that happened.
Sorry, spike in the landside cost. And we're talking about paying truckers to bring back empties.
That is correct, sir.
Okay.
Plus, of course, the other storage costs that we actually incur in the depot because we were not
of
able
inefficiency,
to move them out.
no? Oh, okay, I get that. But you were already doing that before the congestion. Ginagawa nyo na yun. You were already paying truckers to bring back your empties.
That is correct, sir.
Okay. So the question is, if you get back to the price that you were paying the truckers at the pre-congestion time, then there would be a reason to lower your emergency cost.
That is correct.
Okay. So babalik tayo dun sa original discussion. If in that session, our truckers nga, as they're already openly stating here, nagbababaan na yung presyo, that can be a reason for you to lower your emergency cost, no?
Yes, sir.
Okay, for the record, yes. Okay.
Yes, sir.
So, thank you for that, no. So I think
Chairman,
that's pretty clear, no. Kasi again, no, going back to the slide here, it's really just the logistics costs which haven't gotten back to pre-congestion rates, no. For the truckers, they've already stated that they have lowered, and we've clarified they have lowered based on their suggested price during the congestion times, but that price was not followed. But we're looking at somewhere from 11 to 15,000. Okay, from a high of 27 to 30,000. No? Okay, so we will confirm that. No, si Yusek Dimagiba, Attorney Hines will confirm that. And in fact, if that is the case, that also means that our shipping lines will be paying less for the recovery of the empties, and thus they can then start considering lowering or decreasing or taking away altogether our emergency cost. And by the end of April, 80% of the port congestion fees, if this continues, should also be out already. No? That's a commitment, Mr. Ronas, Attorney Cruz?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Okay. I hope I don't see all of you again next month, no? Okay. Yes, Christian.
Your Honor, I just want to put a word of caution because I know everybody's going on the record here. I've seen some of these line commitments on the congestion surcharge. And in many cases, you will note that congestion surcharges are still applicable for cargo, I believe, coming from the United States.
Yes, I do believe that in the States there are certain...
Exactly. So I caution everybody.
Okay.
So
you want to clarify congestion, Philippine port congestion charges?
Well, the way I've seen it written is the PCS for inbound cargo into the Philippines will be stopped other than for cargo coming from the United States or wherever. So it's from multiple points to the Philippines, it's disappearing, but I still have seen that US one because of all the problems in Long Beach. And
so again, we are clarifying that this is the port congestion charge because of the Philippine ports, no? Not because of any other port that might have congestion.
That's correct, Mr. Chair.
All right.
Also, sir, if I may be given a chance,
of course.
I just want to react to what was said a while ago with regards to the deposit. I think it's only one or two lines who may have an issue as far as returning of deposit is concerned. And also on the releasing time, you see, there's a lot of e-commerce work that's being done now. Like, for example, in the past, you had to go through the terminal checkers whenever you want to release a container, but now there's the web CRO. We actually do releasing through the web. In fact, during the time of the port congestion, shipping lines were asked to stay in the office up to Sunday, but actually, we can actually release cargo from home. And also, again, I'd like to clarify the charges that have been brought up here. Some of them were before pre-congestion and not was actually imposed after the congestion. Now, as far as losses are concerned, I would confirm that yes, there were some of our counterparts or some of our colleagues have actually suffered losses. There is actually one shipping line who eventually all of their principal ships actually withdrew from the service and is now only coming back. And it's not just one of them who actually suffered because of the withdrawal of such services, but there have been a few who had to cut, which is again the reason why there was a time that there were no ships that were going to one terminal and you had a lot of ships going into one, or a lot of ships going into another terminal. We look at that in the near future, and if we can sustain the current utilization levels of the terminal, these services will then come back. There are also, we have seen that there has been some new cooperation of a lot of carriers, and it's quite noticeable in the slides that Christian have showed. Mind you, the volumes have grew by 9%, but the number of ships that actually called were far less. So we're talking about bigger ships picking up more cargo and more lines cooperating by loading on the same vessels. In the future, we would like to see you see, during the time of the port congestion, wherein container yards in Metro Manila were actually full, capacity was down to 25,000 TEUs. Eventually, container yards came out. Outside of Metro Manila, from 25,000, we had a steady stream of excess capacity or of capacity that went to about 53,000, which is currently underutilized. I hope rest of the industries will actually support that. We would like also to see Batangas and Subic to be kept in the radar. Subic, as of the moment, as you will know, has been highlighted or has been put on the spotlight, and is now carrying more cargo than what it used to be before. Subic, at the same time, now in the past you only had 2 or 3 ships. Well, one ship was actually calling every 3 weeks, but now, as of the moment, by the end of the month, we'll see another 2 shipping lines calling into Subic Bay. A good thing about this is that it's a southbound trade, and that was one area where, or that was one trade wherein a lot of importers and exporters wanted the lines to go. That's well. Again, we'd like to promote the use of the ICDs, and vessel cooperation is very key as far as vessel sharing cooperation or vessel sharing agreements between carriers is a key factor. One example was the domestic shipping lines. The freight rates continue to go up because they're very fragmented. Each shipping line would have their own set of ships. So in the case of international carrier, we're seeing more cooperation internationally. That's what I want to say, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Ronas. And I'm sure if we're able to pass our cabotage bill, which, as you know, is also one of the products of this committee, it will hopefully make your lives even easier. If we're able to co-load already and dock in multiple ports without any permission from Marina anymore, no? So we're hoping that can get passed this year. That's in partnership with the OTC and DTI. So it's another innovation, hopefully, that will make things more efficient so we can really lower prices, no? At the end of the day, efficiency leads to lower prices. We started the hearing with looking at where we are in terms of the congestion. Naiintindihan naman ho natin na hindi agad-agad at hindi biglaan yung pagpalit ng mga presyo, but we just want everyone here to know that, of course, we're looking at that, no? Because the reason why we started this hearing is because nagtataas yung presyo. So, to say that we have no port congestion, but the prices are still high, means it's not yet a mission accomplished, no? To be able to put a cap to this 1.5 year or 1 year and 3-month journey is to make sure that the prices go to a level where it's close to the pre-congestion rates. If not the same, at least relatively close, no? And it seems that the logistics cost is the last piece of the puzzle, no? So we're really hoping that through a good discussion, and I'd like to thank Yusek Dimagiba and Attorney Hines for, sorry to put you on the spot, but you've done this naman before. So if we can have that multi-stakeholder meeting, we have the commitment already from the truckers, if that can be implemented by our importers and the brokers and, of course, the shipping companies, then hopefully the prices will start to come down. And definitely, babantayan ho natin yan because at the end of the day, yun naman talaga yung mahalaga sa mga tao. Now, that being said, even if this hopefully will be the last time that we have this hearing, we will do our best to follow up in terms of the connector roads, the railways, the possibility of supporting more ports or all of these, as the months go on and as the years go on. And I truly hope that this is the last time that we talk about a port congestion issue, no? Mr. Hervasio, ikaw na po. Have the last word. Sige po.
Yes, we have seen the reports of the port operators, Mr. Chair. They have improved their capacity, their space, and we're expecting more cargoes to come in. And we believe with this initiative, ay ma-address natin yung problema ng port congestion. But we are saying that the local government code shall be revisited for some amendments because of their local autonomy on enactments of law, especially on the roads regulation that affects yung flow of trucks that are just passing on their localities.
That's a commitment of our office. Now we'll try to draft it, and if your groups are willing to help us draft that bill, I don't think it will be a long bill. Kahit a few pages lang, no? Amendments to the LGC. Pwede ho natin gawin yan. No? I'm reminded sa US, di ba may sinasabi silang state matter tsaka federal matter. No? If certain issues are of federal nature, then the national government does take precedence. No? Unfortunately, dito sometimes hindi malinaw, no? But we'll definitely look into that, sir, and hopefully we can file that bill as a direct output of our hearings here.
And not only on the LGUs, Mr. Chair, but also on some government agencies. And I have to say this because we do have artificial port congestions every holiday season, the last quarter, no? At ito naman ay na-address right after January or February. But the greatest fear that we're having right now is the sword of Damocles hanging before our neck. With all due respect to the chairman, is the truck phase out, wherein it's now being implemented, no? And there are many trucks that are now sidelines because we're not confirmed, no? Not allowed to register. And if this will continue, we have the position paper that the non-confirmation year should be suspended dahil ang dami na po talaga nung hindi tumatakbong truck, and it's continuously growing in numbers. Kung ito po ay hindi ma-address in the absence of the policies, kasi we do not believe that the 19,000 trucks that will be phased out by 2019 only for the central office issued NC-wise, not even 50% of that are dangerous trucks, no? Because the phase-out was just based on the year model on the registration. What we're asking there is that it should be based on the roadworthiness and not on the year model. So kung ganun po kasing mangyayari at 19,000, kung magre-reflect po kami at 2.7 million, at the moment, ang binibili pa rin po naming truck ay mga 1996 model na natalo pa rin doon sa 15 years old na sinasabi. At 2.7, we need 53 billion for the 19,000 alone to reflect. Yung pong binibili namin ngayon ay ma-phase out na rin once na ituloy yung 15-year-old. And that's one thing na talaga hindi mapipigil, more than worse than daytime truck ban.
Okay.
And the increase on the tracking rates ay talagang tataas dahil hindi natin mapipigil. We have to purchase more expensive trucks, no, to abide by the policy kung ano man po yung gagawin. So isa po yan.
Ibang hearing na ho yan, no? Pero definitely we can discuss that with Attorney Hines, no? This was also raised, I think, in the previous hearing. Anyway, we can look into that. Although to be frank, that might be the subject of another committee already, no, si Committee on Transportation. But we look into that. I'm sure it's okay, Attorney Hines. Maybe for another hearing na lang yun, no, we can discuss that openly, no, for another time. But I'm sure they're also looking into that, no. And we don't want to disrupt the market forces, no, with regard to those regulations. We have to make sure that there's enough trucks to service the market. At the same time, balance our concerns with safety and roadworthiness, no. So I'll leave it at that, no. And I'd like to thank everyone again. Thank you for attending our hearing. Ano, Yusek, talagang di ba to okay?
Before you
It's
adjourn,
a burning issue.
Just
Sige ho.
do I understand you do not see an objection that we invite, even as an observer, our friends from OFC, DOJ in the meeting?
Yeah, that's up to you, sir. No, go ahead. No, there are partners as well. No, so if you wish to do that, but again, I really believe dapat ma-resolve natin to sa maayos na usapan. No, I mean, if we can resolve this industry level or industry to industry, I think it's really the best way forward. But if we can't, then obviously we'll need to bring them in or even have LTFRB, use their powers even more. No? But I'm very hopeful that we can settle this among ourselves, no, na maayos natin to sa magandang usapan, no. So I'll leave it at that. I'd like to thank everyone again. Maraming salamat. It's been a pleasure meeting all of you. I think this is our third port congestion hearing without the trips and without the small meetings. So we have one last piece of the puzzle left, no, which is to bring down our logistics costs. Yun na lang, more or less everything else we've actually even improved. But ito na lang ho yung panghuli. So please, let's try to bring this back to manageable levels. We understand there's inflation, may mga cost involved. Although I think mas mura ata ang diesel ngayon kaysa 1 year ago, probably. Diba? So baka naman ho, maibaba natin to and mapakita naman natin sa taong bayan that we have the capacity to resolve our issues, no? It took us a year, but at least resolve siya. So this is just one last thing. If I can just get the cooperation of everyone, all the sectors here involved. No? Maraming salamat. Thank you.